Sonic the Hedgehog is a surprisingly good video game adaptation that was actually thoroughly enjoyable and a lot better than I expected it was going to be. It's ranks up there with like Detective Pikachu as being one of the better video game adaptations, and I would absolutely recommend it as a kids film. Sonic the Hedgehog, of course, stars Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. Jason Marsden is a lovable small town sheriff, and Sonic himself is voiced by Ben Schwartz in a pretty comedic performance that does pretty good job in terms of giving this CGI character this lovable and kind of comic appeal to certainly to kids and partially to adults that were fans of either the Sonic video games or even the little cheesy Sonic cartoons back in the day. And it was definitely a surprise, a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Thank God they listened to the fans that criticized the original CGI Sonic that came out with the original trailer, because it was a much better improvement over how Sonic looked in the film, the final film, when they did the updates to make him less humanoid and more game-like or more reminiscent of the video games in terms of how he looked. Like I said, the film this is definitely a kids film. It's something that adults may not necessarily like or get into, and it's kind of a paint by the numbers film in terms of the plot and what the motivations are, any MacGuffins and such in the film. But it is something that kids will enjoy, and it has a couple of jokes and pop culture references that some adults will catch, and they'll say, oh, okay, I enjoyed bringing my kids to watch this, and it's not a total waste of time. It's not nearly as bad as some of the other video game adaptations out there. In fact, it's one of the best ones, like I already said, and I think it's well worth watching. Now, the film it's pretty straightforward. Sonic escapes from where the planet he's originally on, which looks just like the video game. That's how the film opens, with that scene. Sonic escapes with this little bag of rings, the rings that you collect in the video game. Basically what they do is you throw them up, think or say where you want to go, and the rings will transport you to there. So Sonic is able to escape from some evil forces that want to harness his super speed or his electrical abilities or whatever that they're calling it. They want to harness that, and Sonic ends up getting away, finding refuge on Earth up in Montana. I think the place is called Green Hills. And then that's when you get a scene from Jason Marsden, who is basically just this lovable little small town sheriff who is really just kind of bored with his life here because it is a small town. There's a scene where he's sitting there with his little radar gun opening the film, trying to find a speeder, and all he can find is a little turtle that's slowly crawling across the road. And there's a couple jokes there while you see Sonic pop up here and there and looks around at him, and you find out that Sonic basically has just been observing from a distance all the goings on of the town, and he's been saw by only one person, Crazy Carl, I think that's what they call him, who calls him the Blue Devil, and nobody believes him. But he's bouncing around Jason Marsden, and his wife's character is played by Tika Sumpter. She's pretty good in it. There's a couple comical moments between them. She's a veterinarian who, Jason Marsden supported while she was in vet school, and now she wants to support him in his dreams of going off and being a cop in a big city, San Francisco in this case. And that's kind of how the film opens up with them. Sonic is really just, he's isolated. He's obviously the only one of his kind. So there's a little bit of that played in to the film of how, the oddball that's isolated, that's looking for friends. So he's always out there trying to find friendship in something. And he considers Jason Marsden's character, who's never seen, as being like his only or his best friend. And then finally, he's playing baseball with himself, that was shown in the trailer, and creates off this like electromagnetic pulse that alerts the military, who brings in Jim Carrey, who does a pretty good job. He's spastic, kind of amped up a little bit, and kind of maskish in terms of his performance here. He's all over the place, but it's in a good way for Jim Carrey. It's not too forced, or doesn't feel too forced in this case. It actually is kind of entertaining for Jim Carrey to see him do this like crazy, eccentric, spastic character that's out there and doing crazy stuff, but he does a good job with it. He controlled himself when he needed to control himself, and then he let himself get a little bit kooky when he needed to, or when it worked in the film, and I thought that was a decent part of it. I didn't think it was too ham-fisted or anything like that. Again, it's a very basic film. So Sonic goes out there, and then after Robotnik's after him, he ends up having to flee from his home from all these little robots and drones and stuff, and then he ends up going to Jason Marsden's house, where he's just about to throw his ring and disappear to this mushroom planet that he keeps referencing as the only place left for him to go after Earth. But he sees a shirt that Jason Marsden's wearing that says San Francisco. Gets shot by a train gun, drops the ring, and then ends up dropping his bag of rings into the portal, which transports him on top of some building in San Francisco. So there's your MacGuffin for the film. Sonic has then got to work with James Marsden's character to go get these rings. So the film morphs into kind of this like buddy film where they do like a cross-country road trip to get to San Francisco so he can get his rings and then return to wherever he needs to go from here to be safe, while the villainous Dr. Robotnik is following him along the whole time. There's a couple cool jokes or interactions between Marsden and Robotnik where you can tell the Robotnik character he's basically a nerd, has been a nerd all of his life, he doesn't want to have any human interactions, and they kind of joke back and forth, and the banter's pretty good in the film. And it works for what it is. It is a kid's film, so a lot of the humor is toned down, and that's a good thing. It plays well for the target audience. It's not trying to impress an adult who may think that they have a higher standard of film or whatever. So it knows what it is, and it plays fully up to its strengths in this case. So they do the buddy cop thing. They have like a bucket list that Sonic has made up, so they check off a couple things in this bucket list, including like a bar fight. He goes and sees the largest, biggest ball of yarn or twine or something like that, rubber band ball. And then they're attacked on the highway with a little chase scene with these robots that Robotnik sent after him. That part was in the trailer, and it's a little cheesy, but it works for this film. And then finally, you end up in San Francisco, where Jason Marsden's wife, sister, she's pretty funny in the film. The sister basically is like, you need to divorce him, keeps making divorce jokes. And there's a cute little moment where they tied her up into a chair in her own house so Jason Marsden can present an injured Sonic to his wife, who's a veterinarian. And then the wife immediately falls in love with Sonic and it's like, okay, it's cool. And then they go off and try to help Sonic get the rings on top of this building. And they get there, and that's when you have kind of the final battle. It was also shown in the trailer where all these drones and things are around. They shoot a bunch of rockets at them, and it goes to the like super slow-mo scene where Sonic just kind of looks around, and he can move at normal speed while everything's slowed down. And it's obviously something that they kind of lifted or took from the X-Men movies with Quicksilver. It kind of goes supersonic, and then he's out moving around, interacting with the environment while everybody else is kind of frozen. Sonic does this a couple times, and it's cute-ish. I mean, it's a kid movie, so you can't really take it with too much gravity or anything like that, but it works in this instance. So they have their little final battle and end up basically getting transported back to Green Hills, Montana, where Jason Marsden at this point has done realize that Sonic is his friend. Be happy or be content with what life you have. Don't aspire for something else when you leave behind what you know or what you're happy and content with. So there's some messaging put in there, and it works a little bit for the film. It's not too preachy or anything like that. And again, it's a very straightforward film, a little buddy movie about trying to find your friend. You go collect the rings, and then you realize, okay, maybe I don't have to go, maybe I can be safe here. And it obviously sets up for a sequel when there's this final kind of showdown between Sonic and Robotnik, with basically Robotnik being sent over to the mushroom world. And Jim Carrey is funny in this moment. He kind of, like, as the film is closing, he looks at the camera and he's like, I'm stuck here all alone, no supplies. Then he holds up one of Sonic's little quills or something like that, and it's basically an unlimited source of energy, and it's sparkling back and forth. And he's like, chance of survival for a normal person? 0. Me? I'll be home by Christmas. And it works. I mean, like I said, it sets up for a sequel for the film, and I really hope it makes enough money to make a sequel for it, because it is a pretty decent kids film, and it's not wholly unentertaining for an adult. I thought it was kind of cute. I played the Sonic video games, kind of like the little cartoon shows that they had. So it works. It's a decent video game adaptation that I would certainly recommend if you've got kids. Take them to it. The kids will be entertained with it. Sonic is funny, running his mouth, bouncing off the walls just like a little kid does when they have too much sugar. If you're an adult that grew up playing Sonic, you may like this film. I don't think you'll completely hate the film, but you just may be like, it's nothing special. But it is a good kids film, and I would recommend going and seeing it, as it is probably one of the best video game adaptations out there. Other than that, thank you. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share, and have a good day.